Let's go to the complete narrated chapter of Boruto Two Blue Vortex 26. Ready? Then let's go, after the opening.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Manga Information Channel, Sound here. Before we dive into today's content, I just want to ask you to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. It will help the channel grow and reach even more people. And now, without any further delay, let's get into today's video. Let's go!
Page 1. The chapter begins with someone speaking. Welcome. We see that it's Himawari and Inojin. Himawari says, "This honey is always sold out." Inojin says, "It's what you like, isn't it, Himawari-chan? I was just lucky to find it on sale when I went." Himawari thanks Inojin, saying she's very happy. Page 2. So, as he's leaving the Uzumaki house, Inojin notices a frog. The frog says, "I have some questions for you, Inojin Yamanaka." Inojin immediately doesn't know what it is. The frog says, "Well, it's not really a question. It's more of a confirmation." "Well, it's just a formality. I already know the answer." Inojin in his thoughts, "But what could this be?" Pages 3 and 4. The frog says, "You have feelings for Himawari, don't you?" The question leaves Inojin frozen. Inojin says, "No, well." The frog, "Your reaction already answers everything. Now let's move to the next question. Do you want to protect her?" Inojin says immediately, "Of course I do." "That's obvious. Do you still have doubts?" The frog says, "Very well, thank you for the confirmations." Inojin asks, "Wait a second, what are you?" "Well, our interests are aligned. If you want to hear more details, come with me." Pages 5 and 6. Then we see a summoning circle. And then we see Kashin Koji. Inojin immediately says, "But who are you?" Koji says, "My name is Kashin Koji. I am fighting to protect the planet from the divine trees." Inojin, in his thoughts, "Wait a minute. You're Kashin Koji, a remnant of Kara." Then someone says, "I don't want to threaten you, but there is no physical way to enter or leave here." In other words, right now, you have nowhere to run. Pages 7 and 8, we see that the one speaking to him now is Boruto. Boruto says, "Don't worry, we're only here to talk. Afterwards, you can return to your house safely." The scene then shifts, and we go to the Shinju. Hidari is talking with Jura. Mamushi is also there. Hidari says, "Hey, what's going on? Who is that boy?" Then we see a tear rolling down Jura's eyes. Pages 9 and 10, we see Jura was reading a book. Jura says, "Well, this is a book in the category of novel. It's an art of fiction, but I understood it, and it seems that my heart was unexpectedly touched by it." "Something similar happened to you a short while ago, didn't it?" That was Matsuri's emotion. She had many feelings connected with Konohamaru: anger, sadness, and also a glimpse of love. As he says this, we see Mamushi looking at a magazine of women. Through Matsuri, I gained something intense, and these tears were also products of that. Do you think that's grotesque? Page 11. Hidari replies, "No, that's interesting." Jura says, "That said, this is far from enough. To understand and control love, more information is necessary." Mamushi says, "Well, if you ask me about information, this here has nothing special. Eida, she is the woman I have as my target. I wonder, why did my instincts choose her? I think about it, and there is a concrete reason for it." Jura says, "Oh, really? Tell me." Mamushi says, "The reason I want to consume her is not just to hunt her or to desire her. Control. That's what I want. I want her to be mine, to have her excellent genetic information." Page 13. The scene changes, and we go to the Hokage's office. We see Shikamaru. Someone calls him. "Can you hear me, Shikamaru?" Shikamaru says, "Kashin Koji, but how are you making this transmission?" Koji says, "Yamanaka Inojin is cooperating with us. But don't worry, this is an unofficial communication. Don't worry about the sensory team." Page 14. Shikamaru says, "All right, but let's talk later. I was called upstairs. I'm already feeling overwhelmed enough as it is." But the conversation is exactly about that. In the worst case scenario, you will be removed from your position as Hokage. I supposed it wasn't something like this. I already imagined it wasn't any of that. Koji says, "If that really happens, it would also be a problem for me. I'll give you all the advice I can, but what happens depends on you. Act cautiously." How annoying. Honestly, I feel like just resigning right now. Pages 15 and 16. My apologies. Then we see Konohamaru in the council. Then we see a man. The man says, Well, long time no see, interim Hokage, Nara Shikamaru. Shikamaru says, Lord Kobu, what brings a personal assistant directly subordinate to the daimyo? Well, it's about the recent mission you led in the sand, conducted solely by your own authority. Konohamaru immediately says, what do you mean, an arbitrary decision? Lord Kobu says, this time, we are the ones supervising. Daimyo Dono is questioning your responsibility as the leader of the village. These days, the very necessity of the survival of the ninja village is often raised as a topic of discussion. Depending on the circumstances, this could be more than just a matter of budget cuts. Shikamaru says, as you already know, currently our village and the Land of Fire are exposed to the threat of the Shinju. Unfortunately, they are not the sort of people you can negotiate with. While we were taking measures to deal with them, I obtained certain information. The details of this mission and the personnel selection are all based on that information. The other elder, Homura, says, what kind of information is that? Koji, communicating with Shikamaru, says, I'm sure you understand, but don't mention anything about the premonition. Shikamaru says, sorry, I can't speak about the details. This bothers Homura. Shikamaru continues, this is for everyone's safety. After all, it's something whose veracity is still uncertain. Shikamaru says, however, on the front lines, we are often forced to rely on uncertain elements. This time, I followed my own intuition and judged that we should act based on the information available. In the unlikely case that something goes wrong, I take full responsibility for the plan and its outcomes. Sai and Konohamaru become suspicious. Homura says, leaving aside the content of the information itself, what worries us most is its source. I can't imagine, but the provider of this information isn't that rebel. Boruto, is it? We see this almost makes Shikamaru collapse. Elder Koharu says, for some reason, I've heard that he has knowledge about the ecology of the Shinju and the others. In fact, there are even rumors, whispered as if they were true, that he could be secretly pulling strings behind the scenes. The allegation is that it would be a despicable scheme to deceive the village people, using information as bait and attempting to dismantle Konoha from within. It would be revenge against the village that drove him to this. Konohamaru then says, please, wait. That point of view is far too exaggerated. Shikamaru says, stop it, Konohamaru, but Koji interrupts him immediately and says, no, let him speak as he is. It's more convenient than having the attacks directed at you. In that mission, Boruto saved my life. It may be just a personal impression, but at least I can't believe that he has any intention of causing harm to Konoha. Homura says, Konohamaru, Sarutobi, you're on his side? Konohamaru says, no. I just think he might have his own reasons. Idiot. Did you forget? After all, he killed the 7th Hokage. He is, without a doubt, a great criminal and nothing less than a target to be eliminated. Don't come speaking nonsense about listening to a criminal. At this point, there is no more room for debate. Konohamaru says, but Elder says, stop it, Konohamaru. Kobu says, this very mission may, at first glance, seem a success. However, if there is a traitor inside the village who is in contact with a criminal, that's another story. It inevitably becomes a serious problem. That concerns the security of the Land of Fire and Konoha's prestige. Kobu says, Kansai, take Sarutobi Konohamaru into custody. I will conduct the interrogation myself. Sai says, understood. Kobu says, identify every person who had direct contact with Boruto. Each one of them. Kobu says, during that interrogation, how Boruto managed to escape from the cuffs and flee, there must be a traitor who assisted his escape. Let us purge that person. Inojin says, without following due procedures, communicating secretly outside the supervision of the censor team. And furthermore, right in the middle of a Konoha high command meeting. Using the Shindenshin for personal matters is already strictly forbidden. Do you always do things like this? Just from what happened a short while ago, I don't even know how many rules were already broken. Kishinkoji says we are being hunted. We have no choice but to act unofficially. And, Inojin, don't forget that you are already completely involved in this. Boruto says, the enemy is a group that spares no effort in their methods. Boruto says, we have no choices. We need to adapt to the enemy's methods. We don't have time to think about rules right now. Always think about what we need to do now. Using our methods. Inojin's, yes, I fought against Jura, so I understand. To protect everyone from that monster, to protect Himawari, I need determination and strength. Pages 25 to 28. So Koji looks at Boruto and says, so Boruto, did you manage to reach an agreement? I'm talking about Momoshiki. You tried to make a deal with him, didn't you? Boruto says, don't worry. It's my duty to fulfill my role. Koji looks at him and says, is that really an answer? I really didn't like your attitude. Boruto says, that's my line. You've been hiding all the inconvenient details. In the mission at the sand, how many people were really destined to die? Hey, you two, stop it. Koji says, I only guided things to the safest outcome so that Sarada would awaken the Mangekyo. After all, everything was done while avoiding a future where a large number of people would be killed with no chance of defense. If there's still any childish and idiotic criticism, I'll listen. Boruto says, this is a waste of time. Just get on with it. All right, so Shikamaru, are you listening to me? Explain the situation. Shikamaru, already in the Hokage's office, says, Konohamaru was taken in for interrogation. My turn will probably come at some point, but for now, it's all fine. All right, if anything happens, contact me immediately, so that the next battle advances in a favorable way. You should be the Hokage. Ah, what a huge pain in the neck. Koji says, in 1 week, Mamushi of the Shinju will appear in Konoha. His target is Eida. I'll explain his abilities and the best way to deal with him, 32. The scene shifts and we go to Damon, Eida, Sumire, and Sarada. Eida asks Sarada, so when are you going to confess to Boruto? Sarada, all flustered, says, well, I don't know when, and I never said anything about confessing. Huh? What do you mean by that? You're going to confess to him, aren't you? Sarada says, but why would I do that? Well, this isn't the ideal moment for that. The timing, the atmosphere is scary. Eida looks at her and says, what a boring child. Well, what about you, Sumire? When do you intend to? Sumire looks down and says, well, that depends on the timing. I might confess unexpectedly. Eida says, I hope so. This is so exciting. I can't miss it. I think the same goes for Sarada. No matter what you say, right? Eida says, it's true. That could be the case. She already even has a prior record with a hugging incident. What do you mean by incident? Sumire says, but in the end, what really matters are Boruto-kun's feelings, right? Just like Sarada said, he probably won't have time for that from now on. Eida thinks, by the way, after all this excitement talking about love stories until now, I know it's kind of sudden, but Eida continues, you're not charmed by me, right? Pages 33 through 36, Eida says, listen, be absolutely sure that you don't get caught, especially by Damon. The fact that the enchantment doesn't work means, in practice, that you're in a position where you could even kill Eida. Do you understand what that means? If they find out, your life might not be guaranteed. Damon looks at them. Eida says, because that's how it works, isn't it? Talking about liking someone other than me while I'm right here in front of you. Normally, that simply wouldn't be possible. No way. Final pages 37 to 39. Then we see Damon going at them. At the same moment, Sarada activates the Mangekyo Sharingan. However, Damon easily jumps behind the two of them and puts his hand on both their necks. Damon says, you wanted to try something, Sarada. Why did you start using your Mangekyo Sharingan? If you die before using it, it's pointless. Whatever it is, it completely loses its meaning. The tension is at its peak. Fear runs wild. What fate awaits Sarada and Sumire, whose secret has died on, whose secret has been discovered? Well, that was the complete narrated chapter of Boruto Two Blue Vortex 26. If you enjoyed the video, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Until next time, and thanks. Quer que eu já prepare também a tradução editada em estilo teleprompter para vídeo do YouTube, com pausas e fluidez? Pronto para a narração?